So, apparently we're going to have a referendum. Well, we were going to have a referendum, but now we're going to have a referendum about whether we should have a referendum. Who the hell am I? I'm a 55-year-old guy who lives in central Alberta. I got a house I paid for. I run a small business. I own the property my business operates out of, so you could say I've got investment here. And now I have questions. I have a lot of questions about what's going on. How? Why? Should we even bother? So I don't see a lot of the answers for my questions coming up. And I'm a fair bit overweight, so I gotta walk every day. And I took a note from my daughter and got myself a selfie stick. And now when I'm out walking around, I'm just gonna ask my questions. Then we'll post them and we'll see what happens. David Parker wants to answer. I'll listen to what he's got to say. I just want to know he's got a plan. The guy running the sports shop in Bonnyville, sure. You got an answer for my questions? I'll listen. Marty up north, whoever. I'm not here to pick a fight. I just have questions, and I'd like them answered. So, I've been in Alberta since I was 8. I think we moved out here, I was 8 years old, and I've been here ever since. I'm pro oil and gas. I spent a decade and a half in the oil sands, commissioning and starting up plants. I drive electric cars because while I believe there's a place for hydrocarbons, and I don't believe that they're going away anywhere soon, I also believe that the worst way to treat any resource you have is to set it on fire. It's just a bad idea. For decades, hundreds of years, that's what we had to do. Now we don't have to, so I don't. And I gotta be honest, every time I drive past a gas station the last 2 months, if I happen to look at the price, I'm glad I drive electric. So now we've determined that I'm nobody special. I got no high-end background. Both sides should hate my guts. Being an ex-oil field employee who drives an electric car, reckon I've offended everybody, which means I'm probably as pretty close to the center as you can get. So that's what we're going to do for the next 4 months. When I have questions, I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to ask them. And I tell you, there's a lot of things that I just don't get. I don't want to get into how we got here. I get it. 10 years, everybody was upset with the last guy. And yeah, he did some things I wasn't fond of either. But yelling at the current guy for what the last guy did makes no sense to me. It's kind of like yelling at my second wife for something my first wife did. It's just really likely to make a miserable day for all people involved, with no resolution at the end point. So, that's where we're at. I'm 10 years from retirement, and I gotta say, the instability of the current situation worries me. And it's not necessarily, no, that wouldn't be correct. It is necessarily. Everything I see going on right now seems to be trying to encourage people to not invest in this province. And for anybody who's wondering what I'm talking about, you gotta go back to Quebec. I think 1985 was the first one. And then 95 was the second one. There's a reason the headquarters for the Bank of Montreal, not in Montreal, used to be. They had a referendum on separation. And it wasn't a referendum on maybe having a referendum on separation, although they had weird wording in theirs too. But what it did was it took all of the major businesses and caused them to question their investments, where their money was, what their risk profile was. And most of them got the hell out. And I'm already hearing about chambers of commerce talking about business impacts just based on the online chatter going on. So that concerns me. As a guy who owns property, the last thing I want to see, nobody investing in Alberta, a big chunk of people looking to pull out, as in pack up and maintain their Canadian citizenship elsewhere, which is what eventually is going to happen. And for what? Right now, that instability is because somebody posed a question to pose a question. It makes no sense. Other questions I got. What happens in towns like Cold Lake, Grand Cache, Suffield, Wainwright? Those 4 places all have one commonality. Their primary employer is associated with the federal government. 3 of those towns are base towns. Cold Lake in particular employs somewhere between 1,400 and 2,000 people, either directly as military or civilian contractors. We get to the point where we pose the second question. That becomes at risk. And I'll tell you, if I was running a sporting goods shop, say Bonnyville, I would probably want to take a look to see how many military discounts I issue per month. Because most shops have a service member discount. I would be looking at that, and then I would be thinking to myself, if we separate, the first thing that happens is the military pulls all of their personnel back to Canadian territory. All of those customers are gone. All of their houses, if they're in private housing, go on the market. It's a pretty big impact. Cold Lake's population is what, between 17,000 and 20,000? A loss of 2,000 jobs is 10% of the adult population. People leaving town, well, now you've got the guy who works for the military and his or her spouse, any kids they got. That's a massive impact to a town. I don't know. I don't see how that's going to work. Other questions I've got are just the logistics of it all. So, do I need to get a new passport? Who's in charge of making a new passport? Who's in charge of coming up with the currency? Because we know we can't use, well, we could use Canadian dollars, I suppose. But any economist will tell you that's not really what you want to do. It's not a very good idea to use somebody else's currency when you have no control over that market. Who's going to take over law enforcement? Sure, I get it. Danny wants her sheriff's department, but the RCMP has over 100 years of institutional knowledge where they have gone out and made their mistakes and then fixed their mistakes. And they've come up with procedures to avoid making them again. Anybody who lives up in Grand Prairie, who is familiar with the current issues going on with their town police force, understands that just dumping that knowledge out of nowhere and starting from scratch, it's a tough road to hoe. And we're going to do that with everything. You can't become a separate country and have everything just continue on smoothly. You have to negotiate new trade agreements with the old country, with all the countries that the old country had trade agreements with. It's just, I got a lot of questions because I don't see a lot of upside. All I see is decades and decades of very hard work for very low turnaround. So that's it. This is me. Normally I do my walks between 3 and 5 a.m. So we expect it to be darker next time we're wandering around. It is a nice viewpoint. But we'll keep on doing this. We got 5 months. Hang on. June, July, August, September, October. Yeah, rough and dirty 5 months. That's a lot of time to answer some questions. Assuming anybody has the answers. You have a good day, folks. We'll see you again soon.